Howdy folks and welcome back to the channel, welcome back to another tutorial episode of War in the East 2. If you remember from one of my previous tutorials, we have seen that if you highlight the map info folder and you click either on this button or you just press F, you can highlight on the map which hexes do contain fortifications. Now, if you're thinking that fortifications is kind of obvious about what they are, I'm sorry, you're kind of wrong, because the name fortifications imply 5 different types of defensive structures that your unit can erect on the map during a scenario or during the grand campaign. And as always, I have prepared these Excel spreadsheet to summarize the 5 levels of fortifications that exist in the game. Level 1s can be represented, they can represent like individual dugouts and foxholes, and they only take 1 turn to be prepared. Level 2 fortifications are slightly bigger fortifications, say with air quotes, because they include like ivory tier, small trenches, mortar pits, and MG positions. And like the level 3 fortifications, they can take between 1 and 2 turns in theory. In practice, it's much more complicated. Level 3 fortifications, like for instance the fortress of Brest Litovsk, they include a much more sophisticated trench network. You can have reinforced MG emplacements, a much denser camouflage. You can imagine like your soldiers using bushes, leaves, and branches to better camouflage their defensive positions. And then you have the level 4 fortifications. The level 4 are a much more complicated and complex concrete trench network with imagine anti-tank ditches, minefields, maybe in some cases even remotely controlled flamethrowers, barbed wire entanglements, booby traps, and so on and so forth. And they, as you can see, they require an extensive like engineering support and preparation, and therefore they can take between 12 to 24 turns, so 3 to 6 months. And then you have the level 5 fortifications. These are, let's say, a level 4 with concrete bunkers and yeah, imagine concrete bunkers and heavy artillery emplacement, usually maybe even protected by casemates. And yeah, you can imagine like the fences, the coastal batteries that the Germans had behind the Normandy beaches. And if you look at the 1941 scenario, the only level 5 fortifications that exist in the map are the one on Sevastopol and the one off Sevastopol and the one off Oranienbaum, basically. How do units erect fortifications? Every unit, and we can take an example. For example, this one. Yeah, for this one here, the 2nd Rifle Division. If you remember from the advanced unit info box, there is a line, this one here, construction value, that indicates basically the average of all the construction values of the elements of the division, and tells you how fast basically this this unit will build fortifications. Of course, the higher this value is, the faster it will build fortifications. And combat units can get their construction value increased by either directly attaching to the unit. Let's see if we have them here. I don't see them. basically two types of support units. Oh my god, why does the Red Army suck? So, yeah, okay. So engineering for the Germans, these are the pioneer battalions, or construction units. You can directly attach construction units to a combat unit, either construction or engineering support units, or you can attach these units to any HQ or army core or army HQ unit, and during the enemy logistics phase, there will be an admin check that, when successful, it will allow these construction and or engineer support units to increase the construction value of all of the units attached to this army core or army HQ. Now, it sounds easy, but it's much more complicated, and here is why. Fortification construction speed can be affected by a variety of factors. The level of fortification, basically, the higher you go and the slower it will be to build fortifications. Like from at level 0, the construction speed will be like 3 times faster compared to a level 1. On a level 1 fortification, it doesn't get any bonus. Level 2, it gets like 4 times slower. Level 3, 20 times slower, and level 4, 100 times lower. So, and this, let's say, represents the complexity and challenges needed to prepare even more and more complex fortified positions. In regard to the admin checks, now this is true only if there is a fort level above 3, like for instance in the hex of the fortress of Brest-Litovsk, and if the admin check fails. So if the admin check fails on a level 3 fort, then the construction value during the enemy logistics phase is divided by half. Weather does have an impact on the speed of fortifications, indicated here. Static units, I think we have seen the static, I think, yeah, the Red Army cannot have static units in 1941, but if you click on any unit of the axis and you can see the button set static, the unit will lose its vehicles, and at the same time it will gain a slight boost in building, in erecting fortifications. If a unit is adjacent to an enemy hex, the construction value is divided by 5, and like we can see, like the 2nd Rifle Division does have a construction value of 22, while if we pick like the 27th Rifle Division, it has a construction value by 6, because actually we can even try that to see. Maybe not this one. Let's pick any other division, like the 75th Rifle. Yeah, it has a 7, so ideally if I move it here, it's not really 35, because the construction speed is also affected by the movement points of the unit, and by the remaining movement points of the unit. But you see, it was 7, now it's slightly higher than 3 times the value that it had before. And then of course it's dependent on the supplies that every combat unit does have, and the reduction of the construction value based on the supply on the supplies of the unit is directly proportional. So there is, yeah, a proportional reduction of the construction value based on the amount of supplies. The last point that I want to talk about fortifications, and using Excel, of course, is the limits. Well, are the limits, because you cannot build whatever you want, wherever you want. Level 1 fortifications can only be built within a radius of 20 hexes from any enemy-controlled hex, which means that if the Germans are in front of Brest-Litovsk, you cannot build any fortification in front of Smolensk or in front of Moscow. For level 2 and level 3, there are 4 exclusive conditions. It either must be adjacent to an enemy-controlled hex. The hex in question must be a city, urban, or heavy urban type, or this hex must contain a port, or the hex must contain a fortified zone unit. For level 4, the hex must have a fortified zone unit, not fortification unit, and it must be in a city, urban, heavy urban type, or it must have a port like Riga would fit the let's say the prerequisite for having a level fort, because it has a urban type hex and it is on a port, and let's say there are no fortified zone units, but yeah, never mind. And level 5, they just can never be built. They are pre-deployed on the map. Fortifications can, let's say, can decay over time, especially if they are not occupied. Like, for instance, these, if they're not occupied in, I think, 1 or 2 turns, they will just disappear. And the chance of a fortification decaying increases the lower the level of the fortifications is. So level 1 and 2, they can decay pretty fast. Level 3, 4 and 5, they never decay. How can you prevent fortifications decay? Sorry. You can either park a combat unit on any fortifications containing hex, or you can rely on the fortified zone units, which are these ones here. If they are not pre-deployed, you can just right-click on the hex that you would like to establish one, and you click on Build Fortified Units. You have to spend some admin points, and what you will see will be just an... Actually, we can see that. Yeah, it's like it's an empty shell basically, yeah, and throughout the turns it will be filled up. And yeah, fortifications, fortified units, fortified region units, fortified zone units. Yeah, it's you can call them whatever you want. They are a very quick, cheap, and easy option to prevent fortification decay. And as we have seen, like for level 4 fortifications, they have to be there on a urban type X. Like, for instance, if we wanted to fortify Kiev, we would need to establish a fortified unit here. Beside fortifications and fortified units, there is a last type of defensive infrastructure that both Germany and the Soviet can use, and these are city fortresses. Now, city fortresses basically allow you to stack more than 3 units inside. Fortresses do have an incredible bonus to, of course, to the defense of the hex. Can only be built on again, urban, heavy urban, and city type hexes, or in hexes containing ports like Odessa and like Sevastopol, and I think is still Oranienbaum. Exactly, Oranienbaum. And fortresses allow you to stack, I think, up to 9 or 10 uh, combat units. There is, yeah, exactly. There is, you can attach up to 10 units, and you must not exceed the so-called stacking value. And yeah, fortresses, they can be destroyed if totally isolated, or they will just be let's say emptied if there is still an escape route and you win the battle against these fortress. How do you get rid of fortifications? Well, if you see that an enemy hex like this one is empty and does have a fortification, you can just quickly occupy it, and then all the fortifications will be gone. Or you can commit to battle engineer support units and a particular type of artillery units. I need to go to the editor in 1 second. Okay, and here I'm back. Here I am back. In regard to the artillery support units, there are some specific subtypes of artillery called the heavy artillery, like the Germans do have the 600mm Karl siege mortar, or also the 210mm heavy field howitzer. The Soviets do have instead, I think, the 204 BM heavy howitzer. Now, these engineer and heavy artillery, they are really your best friends against fortifications. You can also use I think these are at the flamethrower tanks. Now I can't find them. I'm pretty sure they are here somewhere. Yeah, anyway, I don't see them, but yeah, I know that Germany starts with 3 battalions of flamethrower tanks, and these are very good as well in dealing with enemy fortifications. I think that that's all already for this tutorial, and as always, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for supporting the channel. This tutorial marks, let's say, the end of the, let's say, land block of tutorials, and in the next one we will start talking about the air war. Until then, my friends, take care, stay safe, stay healthy, and if you like these tutorials, stay tuned until the next one.